Hello, and thank you for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec podcast, where we triple your impact per engineer. As always, I'm your host, Aviv Ben-Yosef, advisor and consultant to tech execs worldwide. And our subject today is the Gaslighting Mask. It is about how you're going to prevent yourself from being gaslighted at work. Let's get to it. So if you don't know, gaslighting is sort of a term that means that someone is playing mind games on you and making you doubt what you know, making you doubt what you think, or if you feel like, something is happening and they're making you feel like, no, you're just being paranoid, etc. And in our instance, I want to talk about this not just from the gaslighting point of view of someone being manipulative and wanting to fool you, but simply from the point of view of someone making you doubt what you believe, making you doubt your instincts and how you want to operate. So, first of all, to realize if this is relevant for you, I want you to consider, are there areas in your work where you have intentfully decided to shut down your instinct, to stop listening to things that are triggering warning lights in your head? Now, sometimes this is a result of growing up, or maybe you've become more pragmatic and you realize that not everything can happen as you would like it to. But the question is, are some of those have changed merely because other people made you feel like you're wrong to even have those feelings, as if your instincts are mistaken without any real concrete evidence, without any genuine reason to change your instincts. They're just making you feel like you're not smart enough, you're not involved, you shouldn't be thinking about that, whatever. And this is something that I'm seeing, for example, sometimes people are really being gaslighted. I can see a VP of engineering that has concrete, legitimate concerns about the roadmap and about the projection that the salespeople are showing, and how that, at least to him, looks like things are going to be bad and the company is going to go into layoffs again in 2 months. And if you voice that concern and the CEO, after you say that, basically disregards what you're saying or tells you that it's not your concern to think about those things, you need to be thinking about the engineers, whatever. But if you have concrete, legitimate concern because you can see the numbers, you can see where it's going, I'm guessing if you're a VP of engineering, you can track a simple trend line and see how things are likely to go, you are actually, I believe, fully legitimate to ask for a clarification, to see what is actually different here from how you're seeing it, and not just someone waving their hand at you and telling you to go away. After all, you're not another IC, you're an executive. Another example might be about the strategy. For example, when you keep hearing about how things are happening and when you have your own ideas, when you want to speak up about something or you question an idea, you're not being listened to, you're being dismissed, and you learn that your takes are stupid or that you shouldn't be trying to do those. Those are cases where you're going through active gaslighting. Sometimes you might be going through passive gaslighting, like passive smoking. Whereas you decide for yourself that this is likely what's going to happen, and therefore you stop talking. I'm not talking about the previous example where after this happens a few times you decide not to speak up, but about you simply look at the room for the very first time that you hear something weird, and what you're thinking in your mind is, this doesn't make any sense to me, but I'm guessing if that was the case, someone else here would have spoken up, right? So there's no reason for me to say anything. I'm probably wrong. You're gaslighting yourself. I call this the common sense filter. Sometimes we feel like what we want to say is common sense, so therefore if no one else is speaking about it, we're wrong. And that's also very, very harmful. Both cases don't make any sense because essentially what you're doing is you're training your brain not to trust your instincts. And that is not how you can create a sustainable leadership career. That is not how you create a leader that others would actually genuinely want to follow. And therefore you have to stop it. You have to believe yourself And if you change your opinions based on facts, based on more information, that's perfectly fine. I'm not saying you should be sticking to an idea, being dogmatic, and never changing your position. I am saying that that sort of position change at an executive role has to be due to you understanding more things, you're getting some more perspective, getting some more context, or really understanding that there are more things happening that you cannot get into right now. This is the difference between someone just waving their hand and telling you to go away and you realizing that, for example, there are a few regulatory changes that are taking place, and therefore, even though right now it doesn't make sense to you, you can trust the other executives to tell you that they really believe, they have good reason to believe this will matter within 6 months, whatever. You don't have to be in the details of everything, but you have to realize that there is something there. You're not just being dismissed, but there's something there. And as harsh as it may sound, I think you ought to fight to get those answers. And if you don't, you're doing yourself such a grave disservice by staying in such a place that you probably would be better off leaving. It would probably be better for the company and for yourself. And I really believe that. When I see executives who essentially have lost a sense of ownership for the team, which is something I've talked about in several episodes, oftentimes it's because they're being gaslighted or they're doing passive gaslighting on themselves, and you don't want to do that. Life is too short. We're starting a new year. Make it a year where you put on your gaslighting mask and you make sure to speak up, make a change, understand what's going on. So if you're changing your mind, you're changing it based on real, concrete information, and start claiming your seat around the decision table. Start being a real executive. Start pushing your team forward. You can do it. You got this. If you need any help, my email is always in the show notes. That's it. Thank you for joining me. If you have any questions or comments, again, my email is in the show notes. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to my newsletter. It's the best newsletter online for tech execs. It's where I share a lot of exclusive content, and I'm going to launch a new offering which will be free for those on my mailing list at the beginning of it. So do check it out. Do subscribe. You don't want to miss it. Link in the show notes. Thank you. Talk soon.